My name is Justin Devine. This is my story, how I became an addict. Hope we can help someone out there. Started out with a 10,000 word essay that I had to write for breaking one of the rules here, and ended up turning it around and writing it about my life. Now I'm an addict. Here we go. So this is the beginning of my 10,000 word essay on bullshit, but it's not going to be all about bullshit. I realize that you have put this huge essay on our plates to make us think and put our lives, which it is our lives online, into perspective. So without further ado, here begins a deep plunge into my insane mind and the reason for which I need this recovery in my twisted little life. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to where it all began. My uncle's trailer out in the woods, apprenticing the art, if you call it that, of cooking meth. I was still a teen, and my cousin, who was my best friend, was a teen as well. My uncle, however, was as old as I am now, 26, and just wanted us to be a lower person as he was. So he brought us into his twisted little world of Tweed City. We, my cousin and I, were both very impressionable kids who looked at this drug as an innocent thing. We were both potheads, and how bad could this meth shit be? Little did we fucking know. The next year and a half were remembered in bits and pieces with so much madness involved. I lost self-respect, trust, morals, and so much more in a matter of weeks. Going into this, I didn't realize that I was an addict. Shit, all I did was smoke weed. I didn't even drink at this point. But my first encounter with a hard drug sure as hell brought out the addict in me. See, my uncle made sure we were supplied at all times. At the time, I thought he was the nicest fucking guy alive. But looking back now, I have come to realize that he wanted to bring us in, and he sure as hell did. Well, I would say that was the kickoff of my wonderful life as an addict. Growing up, I never in a million years would have thought that this would be how my life would end up. I had a great childhood. Both parents, nice house, private school, church, food on the table. But there's always some part of me that wanted the other side of the tracks experience. Why, I didn't know, but I got it. Now I wish I had. I guess I always looked at the drama and the chaos that my extended family had, and for a twisted reason I fed into that. One thing I left out is that during the kickoff of all my using, I was with a girl for 3 years. She also had the perfect upbringing. A cheerleader with the rich parents and the stoner boyfriend, who suddenly had an endless amount of powerful substance. So from there, my cousin and his girlfriend, me and mine, we were the Tweetastic duos. My cousin and I would do burns and bring back the dope to our girls. It gave us a sense of power, and that alone is a high in itself. Then, as it always does, comes the lying and sneaking around. This happened when he and I discovered that mainlining felt a whole hell of a lot better than snorting or smoking. Our girlfriends looked down on this, so naturally we hid it from them. I still honestly don't think that this was the initial jump into my downfall. Half yes, because I was now a hard drug user and not afraid of needles. In fact, I welcomed them. The other half came with a substance I fell in love with immediately. No lack of sleep, no paranoia, no long nights of cooking. Opiates. I began a very bad romance with Oxycontin. And the first time I shot an Oxy, I knew I was in trouble. I instantly knew that I not only loved this feeling, but also that I needed it. Of course, my girlfriend knew, and people were ODing from that shit, so it was forbidden. Of course, that just made my cousin and I want it more. So to add to the madness, I was trading half my shit for pills, bringing my girl her meth, do some with her, run to the bathroom, do mine, and act all tweaked out. So now I'm speedballing on a constant basis. See how out of control this addiction is beginning to spiral? The insanity of this addiction is just completely mad. So of course, as any good addict does, I lost everything, ended up moving in with their parents, self-esteem broken, loss of pride, and I weighed a whopping 120 pounds. parents did not like me. As you can imagine, it didn't last long with their parents. I started by stealing all the pain medication in the house, and when that ran out, I started pawning anything valuable I could find. Somehow, within all this madness, I saved up enough, with my father's help, to get a car. Shortly after getting the car, I left my girlfriend of 3 years so I could pursue a more open relationship with my true love, opiates. So now I'm 19 and living with my grandparents. So is my cousin. But now we have a car, no girlfriends to nag us, and wealthy enablers at our disposal. But don't get me wrong, I love my grandparents to death, and I know they love me and my cousin. And my cousin and I were not the best to deal with when we were dope sick. No addict is. We started out by lying about what the money was for, but eventually we found that demanding the money and saying it was for our pill buying pleasure worked more efficiently. We're getting more money now, partly because I think my grandpa was scared of us, so he just gave in. It pains me now because he truly is such a great man. Drugs make me a very bad person. So at this point, we're happy little users, clean rigs, ample pills, and a car to take us to the edge of the world. Now we are both single and full of drugs, so naturally partying comes into play. Pills, drinking, pills, drinking. This became an every night event, and I thought I was fucking invincible. So banging a couple of oxys and drinking all night wasn't going to stop me from driving. To this day, I do not know how, but I don't have any DUIs. Pure fucking luck is probably how. I was flying high on top of the world until one night, leaving one party to go to another on my grandparents' 40-acre property. It was me and my good friend Bobby, jamming out, high and drunk as fuck. Now they say that most accidents happen close to home. For me, this became a deadly fact. I was .4 fucking miles away from my house and veered off the road, popping a tire and resulting in the car flipping twice. Miraculously, or because we were so fucked up, we bounced like ragdolls. Both of us only had to get a few stitches and I had a minor concussion. But in my mind, the worst of it was that my car no longer ran to take us to get the drugs we needed. You see, where my cousin Brendan and I lived was about 30 miles outside the city. No dealers wanted to come out there, and we had no ride to get to our source. Sickness warped our minds even worse. We always told each other that we weren't going to steal from our grandparents, but as any junkie does, we lost our morals long ago. We began taking our grandparents' medication and conspiring with our fucked up uncle again. This, of course, brought resentments and bridges that took a lot of time to repair. Now, at this point, my parents and I did not have the best relationship. They had the perfect Christian family, and I was the black sheep who had lost his way. I was so ashamed of the person that I had become that I didn't even want to try to call him. But my dad wasn't ready to give up on me yet. He got a hold of me, which in these times was not the easiest to do, and offered me a job. He was willing to hire me at his company, and if I showed up to work for 6 months, he would give me a car that they had. Only 2 years ago. The car was only 2 years old and in great shape. The only catch was that I had to go to rehab first and stay clean for those 6 months. Of course, I declined at first, kept getting high, and I, like I always do, hit a bottom. And with my parents' help, I checked into rehab for the second time. Forgot to mention the first rehab stint because I was using the whole time I was in rehab, and it was a total joke. Anyways, I was checked in and ready to start my new sober life, so I thought. This time around was going to be different, I told myself, and I went into recovery ready. Rehab is easy. Say the right things, do what you're told, finish the program. I left there with all kinds of new hopes and dreams, and all kinds of new prescriptions. After leaving rehab, I moved back in with the parents, which was a good move. Rules, stability, and zero tolerance for drugs. By some miraculous way, I stayed sober for the majority of the 6-month duration. Of course, I snuck a few pills here and there, but I got away with it. And here I am now, with money and a car. See the problem? And on top of all the good stuff I had, I was about to meet my future ex-fiancée, who also shared the love of pills with me. During my up and up at the parents' house, I had gotten into a clean relationship with a girl who didn't use, but she genuinely liked me. She was beautiful. In a car, manager at Hollister, who was going to college. This is probably the best thing I threw away. Her and I grew up in church together, and our families were friends. It was all so good, and I broke her innocent heart. I still hate myself for what I did to her. But like I said, when I get back into addiction, the monster comes out in me. My cousin and I threw a bonfire party for my 20th birthday. So my girlfriend had her friends drive her so she could drink. She, unlike me, was responsible and got a designated driver to take her home later. So the festivities began, and then I saw her. Dark blonde hair, pierced and tattooed. Hot. She was staring right back at me. But yeah, she also had a pocket full of birds. So as the night went on, my girlfriend, being a good girl, was a lightweight and couldn't walk 2 hours in the party. I was just getting started. I helped her into her friend's car, and off she went. And the hot Irish girl, fresh from LA, was left with me at the party. Long story short, we did some perks and fucked all night. It was great. 2 days later, Audrey, my future ex-fiance, took matters into her own hands and dumped my girlfriend for me by telling her the details of that night via MySpace. Fucking MySpace. I apologized, and she cried and cried. I felt like shit, but I was already set in my ways. Audrey was my little hardcore chick, and she also loved my drug of choice. So here I go, back on the train of using, and not only did I have my cousin, but my new girlfriend was right there by my side. Keep in mind, I have money in the bank, a car, and the trust of my family. It was back on. I'm not going to lie, her and I made a great team. A little too great. I quit my job with my dad because it interfered with my party. And me and my girl loved to party. We both got jobs at my old place of employment, Casa Montez, a Mexican restaurant, where I already knew everybody and knew that everyone partied too. We rented out a loft apartment in the upstairs of her mom's house. She sold pot and I was in the pillow business. Life was good. Not to mention her mother was an alcoholic who loved me because I would hook her up with free pills. So after all my good work, staying clean, I was back full swing into my addiction. The scary part of this chapter of my life is that I was successful this go around. She kept me in check. We always went to work, always made profit from our drug selling, and always paid bills on time. Things were going good. I was actually doing so well that my sister was turning 16, so I was able to give my car back to my parents, and Audrey and I bought a car of our own, forever hiding and being high 24/7 from my family. You see, the combination of Audrey and I only using our drug of choice, opiates, kept me on a constant happy high, and up in the imaginary clouds. But up in the clouds it has to rain sometimes. 10 months into our relationship, Audrey and I had money in the bank, a car of our own, all the drugs we needed, and we were moving into our own place. We pulled up to our place for the first time, taking a load of our stuff inside. I decided to pop the question. She said yes. I loved her, she loved me, we were stable and happy. What could go wrong? Something always goes fucking wrong. Audrey got caught shoplifting, stealing a fucking pregnancy test at that. She wasn't pregnant. But the cops found pills, weed, and a pipe on her. Court-ordered rehab, 45 days minimum. So here I am with a new place and no girl. Audrey and I talked and everything was going to be okay. I had enough funds and a job so finances weren't an issue. I was now on my own. Money, trouble. Like any smart guy would do when their girlfriend is gone for 2 months, I moved my alcoholic best friend into our spare bedroom. We partied hard. And I was a server, so I got off between 1 and 2 a.m. His job was part-time motorcycle mechanic during the afternoons. So by the time I got home, the party was roaring and I was having a blast. I was letting all my friends crash at the house, stay while I was at work, all the things my girlfriend, who wanted this house to be the start of us, our beginning, would never have let me do. I was like a little kid in a giant drug and alcoholic candy store. And during the whole 2 months, I can say that I honestly didn't cheat on her. I was tempted, but I truly loved her. I even went as far as to move all my roommate's stuff out when she had her one day pass, and we had a good day. I took her back, and the partying went on. Like I said, I was a good boy. I stayed faithful. I thought I was being good. Well, guess who got released early and came home to a trashed house? Half-naked people passed out everywhere, and a girl passed out in the bathtub with my roommate passed out on the floor next to her. Needless to say, I didn't get some much needed sex that night. She approached this matter with different twists. She told me I wasn't ready to get married and said we should just keep the party life. So what? Marriage can wait. Let's party. Life was good again. We kept it somewhat calm, and the marriage thing was being brought back up on the table. We had passed the year mark. I was in love. She was in love. We had money, a car, a house, and drugs. Life was great. Then it all came crashing down hard. Real fucking hard. I came home to find my friend that was crashing on the couch fucking my fiance. They were sober, I was not. I dragged him outside and beat his naked ass till my roommate and some friends pulled me off. Blood and screaming, so confused. I thought we were in love. My life blew up all in that tiny little moment. I'm not going to lie. I tried to work things out with her, but she told me she didn't love me anymore. And that cut me deep, real deep. This was the first real love in my life. I had been in relationships before, but never in love. So my world went upside down, real quick. Chapter 2. So now I am heartbroken, and I don't know what to do. So I got high, forgot about everything until 2 days later. Audrey had gotten onto a plane and went back to California, and I just sat around getting fucked up until my two best friends showed up with a loaded truck and an idea that literally changed my life. They told me to pack my shit. We're moving to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had nothing to lose, so within 12 hours I said my goodbyes and jumped in the truck with them. Broke my lease, just left the car in the repair shop. Fuck it, it was ours. I didn't want it. I was starting over a new life in New Mexico. Fresh, new, exciting. I arrived and immediately knew that I was going to fit in perfectly. Scenesters and hipsters everywhere. My brand new breeding ground. I was a wounded bird, and I played that card and I played it well. I was in a new home and I could be myself full force. I didn't care about a damn thing and had a free place to live, so I went hard and didn't look back. I was waking up at strangers' houses and waking up to girls I had no recollection of meeting, but I didn't care. I was young, had no motivation for anything except being at the next party. If you know anything about Albuquerque, then you know that the University of New Mexico is the center of its existence. With more than 50,000 students, this is my chapter about losing myself and straight up not giving a fuck. I let go of the pills and became a binge drinker, cocaine user, and dove into ecstasy and hallucinogens. I was jobless for a good 3 months, but my roommates worked on movie sets as grips, all the rough work behind the scenes. We had a party one night at our house, and my roommates had invited the crew over for a rat party. They had just got done with the movie Appaloosa. I came wandering in with some girls that I had met on campus, and we were all shrooming on Jack Daniels. Apparently, I was a good host, because the best boy, higher up guy who does the hiring for the movie sets, gave me the number of someone who ran a company named TM Productions. They were a company that rented everything you needed to make a movie or TV show. I was hired immediately and was making $300 to $350 a day. Long hours and great pay. My boss showed me a good trick to make it through the long hours. I was making mad cash, so naturally cocaine was my new best friend. I was going through a ball a day by the end of that job. Work and coke became my new addictions. I was delivering all the equipment to these movie sets, selling coke to the extras, meeting wannabe actresses with the worst self-esteem, and continuing not to give a fuck. Well, that job lasted 9 months, and I was let go, due to the fact that we had lost the contract with Breaking Bad, our biggest moneymaker. I fell back onto what I knew, getting a server position at an upscale restaurant downtown. By this time, we had moved to a bigger place, and remember that alcoholic roommate from before? Well, we moved him and my cousin down to New Mexico. My cousin was back with me, my little partner in crime. It was on. By this time, my ass was getting sick of all the one-night stands and over the ex, sort of. I had tried a few girlfriends out, but they were just rebounds. Then I met Andrea. She introduced me to my first open relationship. She also introduced me to something else, but that's yet another story. And it was progressive. We could care about each other and fuck other people. That was great. We took mass amounts of acid together and kind of just got lost in the scene of what Albuquerque was. I never loved her, but she, and probably some of the acid, opened up my mind to a new perspective on life. Honestly saw the good and the bad in everyone, and this new perspective would emotionally close me up once again for many years. Albuquerque was a big roller coaster of ups and downs. I did drugs, but for those 3 years I was there, I never put a needle in my body, except for my tattoos, which is yet another story not mentioned in this twisted tale. February was here now, and my cousin and the other friend were heading back to Missouri to move home. This was the end of Albuquerque for me as well, but I wasn't heading back home just yet. I had the gypsy itch in me. I had begun to love this traveling lifestyle. I planned on moving home, but I went out to LA for a few months to stay with some friends. It was purely to hang and blow the rest of my cash and see what California was all about. And of course, after 3 years separated, I met back up with Audrey. After all those years, I got what I wanted. To tell her off and move on. I admit it was a childish thing to do, but I had to do it. I had changed. My life of addiction had calloused me, and I liked the change. I had shut off my emotions, and it felt good. I stayed another month and a half and said my goodbyes, jumped on a Greyhound heading back home to Joplin, Missouri. So to recap, 3 years have passed, and I am back to the broke status, and I haven't put a needle in my arm for those 3 years. So there's just a tiny bit of progress, but not much at all, practically nothing. But I'm going back to my hometown with all my old friends. Fuck that town up, get in some more trouble. I initially start by going back to my parents' house, but of course I can't stand the rules. But I am working with my father again, so I have an income. I'm there for a month, and my sister had a new car by now, so I'm back to the old Hyundai that I had from before, and I'm with a new girl now named Anissa. I wanted to use so badly that I leave a perfectly good house, my parents, and live out in my car with her. I love this girl, and we are still best friends to this day. In fact, she is the person I still call to this day to bounce serious issues off of. Her and I were exactly the same and completely opposite at the same time. We were stubborn, and she too could stay at her mom's, but was satisfied with using and staying in the car with me. It was too much time, too fast together. And I loved this girl, but I couldn't handle her complete lack of respect for my friends and her violent outbursts. She one night came at me with a fillet knife, and I barely got out of the way, and she stabbed a hole in the wall instead of my chest. It was a close call. I ended it with her, and got jacked in the face. It was a lovely breakup. I moved into an apartment with my longtime friend, Allie. She's on low-income housing, so rent isn't shit. She was a stripper, and I didn't do shit. But I had a car that she needed, and she had a room that I needed, so we came to an agreement. She lets me stay there for free, and she gets to use my car. It was back to the non-stop party, and I was glad to be back with all my friends. Almost immediately after getting into that apartment, I started selling pills again. Since Allie was stripping every night, I had the place to myself. She hated any kind of drug, so I had to keep it on the down low, which was easy. This went on for a couple of months, and all was fine until Allie and I started sleeping together. It started out as just two friends having casual sex, but I kind of got sucked into a relationship about 2 weeks later. I moved into her room so that we could move another couple into the spare bedroom to make some extra money. I had to stop selling pills and stop taking them. She was a fucking drug hound, and she all of a sudden wanted to spend more time with me. This is a very abrupt change to my fun times lifestyle. I had to get out quick. I took her to work one evening and informed her on the way there that I would be moving out that night. I got punched again. It's 2 punches in the face from the last 2 girlfriends. I'm not very good at this breakup thing. I moved into a trailer with my friends, Greg and Alex, pillheads. I never consciously recognized until I wrote this down, but my addiction is so strong that I'm willing to completely change my environment in order to use when and how I want. I was back at it with those two, stealing, robbing, doing runs, and selling. No real jobs. All three of us had many warrants at this point, so a job was out of the question. We were criminals, and to be quite honest, we were fucking sloppy at it. We were selling and stealing in a car with stolen plates, and we both had multiple warrants. The insanity of addictive thinking was that we were invincible. I was fucking Superman, and nobody could touch me. Till one day, we had stolen some PS3 games, and were selling them at the video game store when the police showed up. They immediately grabbed Alex. I gave a fake name, and as soon as I saw the opportunity, I bolted. I ran so fucking long, and I lost him. I made it back to my home, did a shot, laid back. I nodded out until the police busted in. My bitch of a roommate had ratted me out and told the cops where we lived at. I was booked in and sentenced to 4 months. Nothing I could do. Nothing. I could do that. Little I know, this 4-month sentence was about to be part of something hard in my life, the biggest blow to my life, that to this day I still have a hard time handling. August 10th, 2010. I was playing spades and B-Pod, Joplin City Jail. When the jailer calls me out of the cell, my grandfather's pastor was standing next to the jailer. Oh shit was my first reaction. My grandpa, what had happened? It's never good when a man in cloth visits you in jail. I was walked back to an empty cell, and the pastor asked me to take a seat. I just demanded to know what had happened to my grandfather. Angry and worried, I was flipping out. He gently told me that my grandfather was just fine and asked me if I would just take a seat. I sat relieved only for a moment. He began by telling me that what he was about to say wasn't easy. Now I'm worried about my grandmother. I look at him and tell him just to fucking tell me. He starts crying. I've known this man since I was a little kid, and I've never seen him cry. He looks at me in the eyes and says that Brendan was found dead this morning at your grandparents'. I laughed. I fucking laughed. This couldn't be real. Not my cousin. Not Brendan. He was turning 20 in 4 days. This couldn't be real life. Then it set in, and I couldn't control the tears and the sobbing. I didn't even have to ask. I know he overdosed. I knew the disease had taken my best friend, this teenager that I had known since birth. The kid that was my brother, the kid that I shared a room with. My parents got custody of him and his 2 brothers, and my aunt did never shit together. He was gone, and I was in fucking jail. The next 2 months were the longest 2 months of my entire life. Of course, I had lost people, friends, but not my best friend. Because I already knew the courts would not let me out for the funeral. So on August 14th, his fucking birthday, they buried him, and I sat in a 6x6 cell, hating everything and everyone, and nothing was worth living for anymore. It still wasn't real to me. I was in jail and Brendan was dead. It wasn't real to me. I got out of jail, and Brendan's ex, my longtime friend Desiree, and Brendan's brother, my other cousin, picked me up. We all cried, couldn't say a damn thing. I didn't go home. We didn't go home. We didn't even go straight to his grave. We went to get some of that good shit that killed our brother, our friend. We didn't want to feel the emotion, and quite frankly, we didn't care if it killed us either. I was kind of hoping it would. We went to his gravesite, and I remember looking at that still fresh pile of fucking dirt. No headstone, just dirt. And he was under it. And I had the same substance that put him in that grave coursing through my veins at that very moment. It still didn't feel real. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do except get high and push the envelope as hard as I could. Me, his brother Timmy, Desiree, and his best friend Tony just kind of gave up on everything. He was back to getting high, but it was for a different reason now, a dark reason. We went to the extremes and we did it well. Mixing drugs, seeing if we could survive the next shot, seeing if we would meet up with Brendan soon. This is not what he would have wanted for us, but it's what seemed right. For the next year, we blacked in and out of reality. We didn't know how to handle this. We didn't want to feel the emotions, and we misplaced them in all the wrong places. Desiree and I were sleeping together aimlessly. I think she was looking for him and me, but he wasn't there. Tony was looking for him and Timmy, my old cousin. But I knew Timmy and Brendan may have been brothers, but they were nothing alike. Timmy is crazy and extremely violent. Brendan was passive and kinder than Mother Teresa, polar opposites. Timmy was looking for excuses to fight anyone who could, while I fucked the pain away and blasted anything that would fit in my grave. But the pain didn't go, just subsided for a brief moment. This went on for about 10 months. And then the tornado hit. An F5 took out 1/3 of my hometown. It was terrible. So much bad shit was happening so fast. My sister and I's house was gone. It was gone. Thankfully, we were out of town camping with some friends when it happened. We walked throughout the city, stopping at our friends' houses to check on them. I saw so much destruction, bodies in the streets, the smell of it was nauseating. It was utter madness. People walking in the streets, bloody and battered, kids yelling for their parents. It was bad. When we arrived at Desiree's apartment, it wasn't there anymore. I ran. I fucking sprinted towards the rubble. I couldn't have lost her too. I just couldn't. She wasn't there. No cell phone reception, so I couldn't call her. I was freaking out all day. It turns out she had gotten hold of my mother to make sure I was okay that evening. Thank God all my friends had made it through the tornado. My parents' house became a home to me, my sister, and Desiree, my sister's boyfriend, and 2 of our mutual friends. We had lost everything. For the first time in my life, addiction hadn't taken everything. Mother Nature did it this time. I stayed around for 3 more weeks, volunteering to clean up in the city. My cousin Timmy had come into some money. When he turned 18, so with no home, no Brendan, we moved to Albuquerque. His first time, my second. We moved into an amazing house with my old dealer. Not the best idea. With a wad of cash and both of us depressed as fuck, we drank away our sorrows and blew through the money in a matter of months. It was a short move. After only 4 months, we ran out of money and he got on a Greyhound ticket back home. I was on a self-destructive mission, so I found a friend in Colorado that needed someone to house sit for them for a month while he went overseas. I hitchhiked from Albuquerque up to Pagosa Springs, Colorado. I was given a credit card and a house for a whole month, and I was all alone in a small mountain town, depressed and without the will to live. November 5th, 2011. It had been a year and 3 months since Brendan had passed, and I was sick of living. I downed a half gallon of vodka, a bottle of rubbing alcohol, a box of sleeping pills, a bottle of Listerine, and a bottle of oxycodone. I was done with life. Just done. I woke in a haze in the back of an ambulance. The damn neighbors had called the police when the dog wouldn't stop barking. Fuck, I didn't do it. I was still alive. After lots of tests and poking and prodding, the diagnosis was in. I had successfully given myself alcohol-induced pancreatitis. Apparently this is pretty severe because they kept me in the hospital for 10 days without insurance and had me on 4 milligrams of Dilaudid every 4 hours for 10 days, which I loved. My parents were so disappointed. Here I was being selfish. Brendan was gone and I was trying to make them bury me too. I wasn't thinking of their feelings at all. My mother called me at the hospital and informed me that I was getting on a plane in the morning and would be flying to Mesa, Arizona to a halfway house. I was not happy. Fucking halfway house? What the fuck good was that going to do? I didn't want help. Figured it couldn't hurt though. whatever. It was Mesa, right next to Phoenix, Arizona. This could be fun. I arrived at TLC Men's House, 60-some dudes, all in one facility together. Great. Made friends quick. My group of people, seen kids in their 20s, and a dopey-looking kid named Jake. I was fucking up in that halfway house from the start. Just a drink to begin with, here and there. We had to leave the house from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in a big city full of trouble. Jake, Chris, Austin, and I wandered around the city aimlessly and really got nothing accomplished. It was about 2 weeks in when Chris introduced me to his ex-girlfriend, Stripper Cindy. She picked up Chris and I and was introduced to black tar heroin. Fell in love. I fucking love this shit. I had done every pill under the sun, but when I shot tar into my body, it was on. We were bringing tar back to the house, always using. In fact, I was on heroin from the first time I shot it to the day I left Arizona. I could have skipped all the heartache, danger, and craziness early on. Jake and I were walking one day, and he told me about a place down in Florida, Twitch's Transitional Recovery Home. Should have listened then. I told him thanks, but I was in too deep at that point. Knew too many people and wasn't ready to stop. And I knew it, and so did he. I was kicked out a week later. Honestly, I was surprised I'd made it that long. Chris and Austin were too, and we all went to our buddy's apartment, our temporary heroin den. We were there for a couple of weeks, and then it was to the streets. I was a heroin junkie on the streets of Phoenix with my road dogs, Chris and Austin. I learned a lot of new scams to get money. The big city was a playground for me. We did good, only slept outside a few times in that year I spent in Arizona. About 3 months in, Chris went to prison for charges he was wanted for. For 3 months, it was me and Austin. I hated it. He was a great guy, but was definitely not built to be a junkie. He bitched all the time, and he smoked, didn't shoot, with waste of heroin. And my dealer didn't like him, so I always had to go alone. Chris gets out of prison. We're back to it. We moved to Scottsdale. Well, we crashed there for a quick minute before heading up to Prescott, Arizona, to move in with his girlfriend. He warned me about his friend that lived up there. She was me in a girl's body, and her boyfriend had just passed away from a heroin overdose, so she was all sorts of fragile. Oh yeah, and I mentioned she sold H. It was love at first sight, at first talk. She hugged Chris, caught up on the times they hadn't seen each other, and then she looked at me, and the first thing she said to me was, "You're cute. You wanted to go to the bathroom and do a shot." I was in love, junkie love. Chris and his girl lived together, and shortly after meeting her, Molly and I moved in together. I hadn't opened up or trusted a female since Audrey. Molly was 6 foot, redheaded, tattooed, and a Pisces. She did my drug of choice, but it wasn't her favorite. Hers was meth, a drug that I had learned to hate. It was a constant battle between whether to get heroin or meth. She was freaked out about her ex dying, so it made sense, but I continued using, and so did she. We decided about a month later that we were done with the drugs, broke our rigs, and we're done with it. We stocked up on Suboxone and locked ourselves in our studio apartment. We made it through the withdrawals and made it 2 weeks when she came home one day with some H. I told her not to do it, but of course she didn't listen. I held out another 2 weeks, trying to show her it was possible. In a weird way, she was my drug. I got high from her. As soon as I started again, I found out that she had been getting fronts all around town in my name. I owed hundreds of dollars of smack that I hadn't even done. I had to get out of town. We argued and fought for hours. It ended up in her dumping me and kicked me out. I was heartbroken. With no girlfriend, no home, and a price on my head, I hitchhiked the hour drive back to Phoenix. Chris had gone back a week before, so I met up with him. I was now living with my now ex-girlfriend's brother, Molly's brother, in a tweaker pad. I stayed up for 7 days with the complete intent of losing myself, and I sure as hell did. I ended up hooking up with an 18-year-old girl who was a mutual friend of all of ours. I partied at her house, and Molly's brother came over. And little did I know that he had found out about mine and his sister's heroin use. He hated heroin. So he knocked me in the mouth with brass knuckles, resulting in the loss of my front tooth. Yeah. I didn't care about it at the time, but the next morning it set in and my perfect girl was tainted. I said, fuck it, woke up early one morning, robbed the girl's apartment, hopped on my stolen longboard, and headed to the pawn shop. With a wad of cash in my pocket, I headed to see my girl Kelly. Her and I went on my last heroin venture in Arizona. It resulted in a 2-weeker. I couldn't do this anymore. I knew if I stayed there, I was going to die from this drug. I made the phone call to my parents. I was on a Greyhound back home the next day. I was back in my hometown for 2 days and got arrested on old charges. 4 months. I got out, went right back to heroin. I was home and back to my destructive ways. My family wasn't having it. They told me to get help or they wouldn't bother, or don't bother calling or seeing them ever again. Jake called and I made the decision to come here. Now, since I've been here, I've done my fair share of fucking up, relapsed a few times, and here I am now, hoping that this time I can get it right. I know that this addiction thing is fucked up. I've seen a lot of friends go, and I've seen myself fall down into pits of despair that I just never want to go back to. I hope this reading can help someone. I said I'm Justin. My Twitch is, and I'm trying to get better. I hope this helps someone. Thank you.